You ever get that feeling, like the ground under you hasn't shifted yet, but something in your gut tells you it's about to? That was me a few months ago. My name's Brandon Miller, I'm 44, and I've worked as a mechanical engineer at an oil refinery in Iowa for the last 15 years. 19 years married to my wife Laura. We've got 2 kids, both in college now, so it's just been the 2 of us at home lately, moving through life like clockwork. Mornings started with coffee and news, evenings with dinner and a TV show we probably weren't paying attention to. Predictable. Quiet. Stable. That's what I thought, anyway. The first time I noticed something was off, Laura had just come back from a 3-day trip to St. Louis for a leadership workshop. She said it was some company-sponsored thing for mid-level managers. Networking, branding, team building, all that fluff. She came back smiling, talking fast, laughing at jokes I didn't think were that funny. I figured it was just the good mood from getting out of town, maybe a change of pace. But the energy felt artificial, like she was putting on a show. Her smile looked a little too polished. Her laugh had an edge I didn't recognize. Then came the wardrobe changes. Laura's always been practical. Jeans, hoodies, a couple blouses for work. But suddenly she was coming home with fitted dresses, heels, even lingerie. At first, I joked about it. Someone trying to impress the boardroom? I asked one night, gesturing to a sleek black dress hanging in her closet. She just shrugged and said, I figured it was time to update my style. I wanted to believe her. I really did. She also got a new haircut, not a trim, but a real style. Layers, side-swept bangs, and these subtle blonde highlights. She started wearing makeup again, just a little, but enough to notice. A spritz of perfume before leaving for work. A new leather handbag. A gym membership she hadn't mentioned before, even though she'd never been interested in gyms, not once in almost 2 decades of marriage. I told myself maybe this was her way of reinventing herself. Empty nest. Career growth. Middle-age transformation. All of it sounded like perfectly normal reasons. But then the signs started stacking up. One night, I went into her bathroom looking for nail clippers. I opened her drawer and saw a bottle of men's shampoo, one I didn't recognize. Definitely not mine. She told me it was a sample from a hotel. But it was half used. Another day, I drove her car to get an oil change. The moment I opened the door, the smell hit me, cologne. Not mine. Not anything I'd ever worn. It was subtle, but it lingered. I sat there for a minute, hands on the steering wheel, staring out the windshield like I was trying to convince myself the scent wasn't real. I asked her about it later, calmly, casually. Oh, that, she said, not even blinking. Zach probably wore too much the last time we carpooled to the airport. I'll crack a window next time. That was a new name. I didn't remember her mentioning him before. But over the next couple of weeks, the name kept popping up. She'd say it in passing, always with this careful casualness. Like she was trying to plant him in my mind ahead of time. Apparently Zach was in the marketing department too, and they'd been working on some cross-department project. Nothing big, just a few presentations here and there. That's what she said. I nodded like I believed her. And maybe part of me did. Or wanted to. But it wasn't just Zach or the clothes or the cologne. It was her. Laura, my wife, the woman who used to ask about my day, who used to fall asleep with her head on my chest, who used to send dumb memes to my phone at lunch, she was gone. Or at least, something inside her was. We stopped having real conversations. She was always busy. Always tired. Always planning something for work. When we did talk, it was surface level. Grocery lists. Bills. Weather. Like we were co-workers who happened to share a kitchen and a bed. One night I tried to reach for her in bed, nothing more than just touching her arm, wanting some sort of connection, and she shifted away like I'd startled her. Not tonight, Brandon, she said, sighing. I've got a flight in the morning. Her voice wasn't annoyed. It was indifferent. That was worse. The worst part is I still didn't say anything. I didn't press. Didn't accuse. I didn't even ask for more details when she said she'd be off the grid during her next trip. Who's off the grid in 2024 on a marketing trip? But the silence, it was safer. Safer than hearing the truth. Safer than watching her lie to my face. I told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe I was just feeling the weight of the empty house, the quiet dinners, the long evenings without the chaos of raising kids. Maybe this was just a rough patch. So I waited. I waited and watched as the woman I married slowly morphed into someone I didn't recognize. Someone I couldn't reach. Someone who seemed to be slipping further away with every passing day. And still, I said nothing. Because once you break the silence, once you ask the question, there's no going back. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. The change wasn't just in what Laura did. It was in how she looked at me. Or more accurately, how she didn't. It crept in like rot, slow and silent. First, she stopped sitting next to me on the couch. Then she stopped laughing at my jokes, not even the dumb ones she used to roll her eyes at playfully. Eventually, she stopped even trying to make small talk. We'd go entire meals without saying more than a few words. I'd ask how her day went, and she'd shrug, say, fine, and go back to scrolling through her phone. I started to dread the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. Isn't that messed up? After 19 years of marriage, the person who used to be my best friend now made me feel like a stranger in my own home. Every conversation felt like I was bothering her, like I was taking up space she didn't want to share. The sarcasm was the worst. That slow, bitter edge that crept into her voice. I'd make a simple comment, like asking if she wanted to order out or if she needed help with groceries, and she'd bite back with something cold. You know where the fridge is, she said one night without looking up. If you're hungry, figure it out. I stood there holding 2 takeout menus, one in each hand, wondering how the hell this was my life now. We weren't arguing. We weren't fighting. We were just cold. Like something had been turned off inside her. That same night, she got a call while we were cleaning up after dinner. Her phone lit up on the counter. I didn't touch it, but I saw the name flash across the screen. Zach. She grabbed it faster than I could blink. Hey, she said, walking out of the room before I could even register her tone. She stayed in the hallway for almost 20 minutes. I could hear her voice from the kitchen, low and soft. Laughing once, a short, breathy laugh that she hadn't used with me in a long time. When she came back in, she didn't offer an explanation. Just sat on the couch and turned the TV on, like nothing had happened. I didn't ask. I should have, but I didn't. The next morning, I noticed her phone had a new passcode. She'd never had one before. At least, not one I didn't know. She started keeping it face down. She never left it unattended. Once, it buzzed during dinner, and when I glanced at it instinctively, she snatched it up like I was trying to read her diary. What, you spying on me now? She snapped. No, I said stunned. It just lit up. She scoffed, muttered something under her breath, and shoved it into her bag. And just like that, the distance between us grew wider. Her touch disappeared. Her affection went extinct. She stopped saying goodnight. Some nights, she didn't even come to bed. She claimed she fell asleep reading or crashed on the couch because she was too tired. I told myself again and again, maybe this is burnout. Maybe work is stressing her out. Maybe she's overwhelmed. But deep down I knew this wasn't exhaustion. This wasn't stress. This was detachment. A withdrawal. She didn't care how I felt. She didn't even try to pretend anymore. I started paying attention to her stories. Every time she went out for team happy hours or late project deadlines, I'd ask casual follow-up questions the next day. Where was it? Who was there? What did they talk about? Her answers were vague. Oh, just the usual crew. Or, we went to that place downtown, I forget the name. Or my personal favorite, why are you asking so many questions? Because your stories don't line up, Laura. Because I don't recognize you anymore. Because my gut is screaming at me, and all I want is to be wrong. But I never said any of that. I nodded. I smiled. I poured another cup of coffee and changed the subject, all while the cracks in my chest spread a little deeper. She started wearing perfume again, something musky, floral, not her usual scent. I noticed it most when she'd come home late. Her clothes smelled like a mix of that perfume and something else I couldn't place. One night I caught a trace of it on the passenger seat of her car. A faint blend of sweat, cologne, and her perfume, all mingled together like the aftertaste of intimacy. I'd lie awake at night replaying everything, her coldness, her secrecy, her dismissiveness. I tried to remember the last time she told me she loved me, unprompted. I couldn't. I tried to remember the last time she'd looked at me like I was anything other than in her way. One Saturday morning while she was in the shower, I opened her coat pocket looking for the car keys. What I found instead was a movie ticket stub. It was dated from the previous Thursday, 7:40 p.m., a theater on the other side of town. She told me she was working late that night. I held onto that stub for hours. Just stared at it. Turned it over in my hand like it might confess something if I looked at it long enough. When she got out of the shower, I didn't say a word. Because I was still holding on. To what? I'm not even sure. A memory of who she used to be? A hope that I was just being paranoid? The comfort of denial? Maybe all of it. I kept thinking, if I confronted her, what would I even say? What if I was wrong? What if I blew up our whole life over suspicion? So I kept my mouth shut. I buried the evidence. I buried my instincts. I buried myself. And in that silence, something inside me began to rot. She told me she was going to Chicago. 3 days. Some big annual marketing conference her company was sending her to. She said it would be packed. Early mornings, late nights, presentations, mixers, brand showcases. I probably won't be able to talk much, she said while tossing clothes into her suitcase like it was any other trip. Don't worry if you don't hear from me. I stood in the doorway, watching her fold a new dress, one I'd never seen. Black, silky, the kind of thing you wear to a date, not a trade show. You packed heels, I said. I meant it as an observation, but it came out sounding like an accusation. She didn't miss a beat. There's a formal dinner the second night. Formal. I nodded, forcing a smile I didn't feel. She didn't look up. She left early the next morning, barely kissed me goodbye. Said she was running late for her flight. She didn't forget her charger or her ID. She didn't even forget her noise-canceling headphones. But she did forget something, her laptop. It was sitting on the coffee table when I came downstairs, still charging from the night before. At first, I didn't touch it. I just stared at it like it was ticking. Like if I opened it, everything I feared would explode into the room. But I couldn't help myself. My hands moved before I made the decision. Her laptop was unlocked. One browser tab was still open. A hotel booking confirmation. Milwaukee. Not Chicago. I blinked. Reservation for 2. 1 king bed. 2 guests. Laura Miller and Zach Harper. There was. My marriage, boiled down to a single screen. I stared at that email for maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 10. I don't even remember breathing. Just sat there, stunned, reading the date, the check-in time, the little amenities list, like any of that mattered. She hadn't just lied. She hadn't just shut me out emotionally. She was cheating. Actively. And I had proof. Real, undeniable proof. I didn't yell. Didn't call her. Didn't smash the laptop. I didn't even cry. I just closed the screen gently, stood up and grabbed my coat. I got in my truck and drove. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't pack a bag. Milwaukee was about 4 hours from us, give or take. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, but my mind was calm, calmer than it had been in weeks. I needed to see it. Needed to witness it with my own eyes. No more shadows. No more second-guessing. I checked into the hotel lounge attached to the address from the confirmation email. Ordered a coffee. Sat near the window where I had a clear view of the lobby. Told the server I was waiting on a friend. 3 hours passed. Then I saw her. Laura walked in with him. Tall, dark hair, business casual. They looked like a couple straight out of a travel ad. Laughing. Comfortable. She was wearing the black dress. The one from the suitcase. She looked alive. Like she was 20 years younger and didn't have a husband waiting at home, sitting in a hotel bar 10 feet away. She touched his arm. He leaned in and said something that made her laugh. Then she reached for his hand. And that was it. That was the moment. My stomach sank, not like a drop, but like a slow, steady descent into something dark and quiet. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel heartbreak. Just this deep, hollow ache, like I'd been scooped out from the inside. I took my phone out and snapped 3 photos. One as they walked to the front desk. One as they got their room key. One as they stepped into the elevator together. Then I stood up, dropped a 20 on the bar and walked out. I didn't confront her. Didn't follow them. I wasn't there for a fight. I was there for confirmation. And I got it. The drive home felt longer. The air was heavier. Every song on the radio was suddenly about betrayal. Every billboard, every exit sign, every gas station felt like it was floating past me in some other dimension. I stopped for gas just outside of Davenport, stared at myself in the bathroom mirror, and thought, this is it. The moment your life splits in two. Before and after. When I pulled into our driveway around midnight, the porch light was still on, like nothing had changed. But everything had. The same way a house feels different after a storm. Even if nothing's broken, you can still smell the air, still feel that pressure that never quite settles. I didn't go to bed. I didn't turn on the TV. I sat at the kitchen table with the laptop, the hotel confirmation pulled back up, the pictures queued on my phone. I stared at them until the screen blurred. I wanted to believe it was a bad dream. But I knew better. This wasn't a suspicion anymore. This was a reckoning. When I got home, I didn't go straight to bed. I didn't pour myself a drink or call a friend or even cry. I just stood in the middle of our kitchen, surrounded by the quiet weight of our life. Photos on the fridge, her tea mug still by the sink, the jacket she always left on the back of the chair. I stared at those little signs of normalcy like they were evidence from a crime scene. I don't know how long I stood there. Eventually I moved. I opened the drawer where we kept the printer paper and pulled out a pen. I printed the hotel confirmation, attached the photos I took from the bar, 3 crisp, undeniable images of her with Zach, and set them on the kitchen table. Then I wrote her a letter. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't rage on the page or try to guilt her into shame. I just told the truth. I told her I knew. That I had seen them. That I had watched her laugh in that man's arms like I never existed. I told her she didn't have to lie anymore. That the marriage she destroyed was now beyond repair. I told her she was no longer welcome in this house. Then I got to work. I started with our bank accounts, removed her from the joint checking, transferred my direct deposit to a separate one. Changed every password. Netflix, Amazon email, utilities. Every trace of shared life we had, I untangled thread by thread. I wasn't doing it out of spite. I was doing it because I had to protect myself. There was no telling what she'd do once she realized the game was over. I packed up her things next. Not everything, just enough to make a statement. Clothes, shoes, cosmetics, some of the trinkets she kept on the nightstand. I didn't damage anything. I folded each item with care. I didn't want chaos. I wanted clarity. By sunrise, I was done. I left the letter, the documents, and a neat stack of her things on the dining room table. Then I grabbed my keys and drove. I needed air. I needed space between me and that house. I ended up at a diner on the edge of town, the kind with chipped mugs and waitresses who call you hon. I sat in the corner booth, nursing bad coffee and replaying everything in my head. What she'd said. What she hadn't. The lies she told without blinking. And the truth she could no longer hide. Around noon, I drove back home. Her car was already in the driveway. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in, the papers spread out in front of her like an autopsy report. When she looked up, her eyes were red, not from sadness, but from fury. "You went through my things?" she spat. "You spied on me?" I stared at her for a second, almost amused by the indignation in her voice. That's what she opened with? Not an apology. Not regret. Just rage that I had the nerve to catch her. "You lied to my face," I said. Measured. "You told me you were in Chicago." Her lip curled. "So that gives you the right to stalk me?" "I didn't stalk you," I said. "I followed the truth. And I found it." She stood up, pacing like a caged animal. "You don't understand." "Says." "Don't," I cut in, raising a hand. "Don't insult both of us by trying to explain it away. I saw what I saw." She opened her mouth, but I wasn't done. "You were in love with someone else while sleeping in my bed. You laughed at his jokes while I made you dinner. You lied to our kids while I worried about your flight delays." Her shoulders tensed at that last part. "You told them?" she asked, her voice brittle. I nodded. "They deserve to know who you really are." that hit her harder than anything else. Not the photos. Not the letter. Not even the cold finality in my voice. The kids. The knowledge that her betrayal had bled into every corner of our lives. They won't forgive you, I added. Not for this. Not for how you treated me. You didn't just break a vow, you dismantled this family like it meant nothing. She sat down again, her hands trembling, but her expression hardened. You're not perfect either, Brandon. You buried yourself in work. You didn't see me. I almost laughed. I didn't see you because you disappeared. You vanished before you even packed a bag. She looked away, jaw tight, eyes glistening. I'm moving out, she said finally, voice hollow. I'll get the rest of my things next week. I nodded. Fine. But not while I'm here. She stood and walked toward the door. I watched her, this woman I once loved beyond reason, pause with her hand on the doorknob. I never meant for it to happen this way, she said softly, almost like she was speaking to herself. But it did, I replied. And that's all that matters. Then she walked out. And the house was quiet. Truly quiet. No footsteps. No slammed drawers. No lies being whispered in the next room. Just silence. And strangely, for the first time in a long time, I could finally breathe. She didn't try to call. Not that night. Not the next day. Not the day after. Laura, who once couldn't go a full afternoon without texting me some random thought or sending a picture of the cat in a laundry basket, was suddenly a ghost. The silence should have felt peaceful. Instead, it was sharp, cold. It wrapped around the house like fog, seeping into every room. I kept expecting to hear her keys in the lock. Her laugh from down the hall. A drawer slamming, a sigh, anything. But there was nothing. I left her things in a few labeled boxes on the porch a week later. I didn't see her take them, but they were gone by the afternoon. No note. No knock. Just absence. And that was fine. Quiet. The kids didn't say much, but their silence told its own story. They'd asked me once, just once, if it was true. If Mom had really lied, really cheated. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't dramatize it either. I just said, this. She made choices that broke us. They didn't respond, at least not with words. My son just looked down at the table and nodded. My daughter walked away. Neither of them asked again. Laura tried reaching out to them in the following weeks, of course. But whatever she said, whatever guilt she tried to push through their screens, it didn't land. They stopped replying. At least to her. They still called me. They still visited. I never asked what she said to them. I didn't want to know. 3 months passed. Then one morning, a letter came. Handwritten. No return address. But the moment I saw her handwriting, I knew. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the kitchen counter and walked away. Made coffee. Took out the trash. Swept the floor even though it didn't need sweeping. But the letter sat there, stubborn in its presence, like it had weight, more than the paper it was written on. Eventually I read it. It wasn't long. Just a few pages. No excuses. No begging. Just her truth, written in the same handwriting she used to leave "love you" notes in my lunch bag all those years ago. She admitted it all. She said the affair wasn't about Zach. Not really. She said it started as an escape, first from the quiet of the house, then from herself. She didn't even try to paint it pretty. She said she was lost, and instead of turning toward me, she ran. She said I didn't deserve what she did, and that no explanation would make it better. She ended it with this. I still dream about us. Not the end. The beginning. When we were stupid and happy and thought forever was easy. I'm sorry I burned it all down. I hope one day, you'll find peace in something new. Because you deserve it. You always did. I read it once. And then I burned it. Not in anger. Not as a dramatic statement. I just didn't need it. Her words didn't change the facts. They didn't stitch the trust back together. They didn't undo the empty nights or the look in her eyes when she thought I didn't matter anymore. Apologies don't erase choices. Only consequences do. And the truth is, peace didn't come right away. It never does. It crept in slowly. In the quiet routines I built for myself. In the walks I started taking after work. In the dinners I made just for me, with music playing and a drink poured. I wasn't happy, not yet, but I was honest. With myself. With my kids. With the pieces I had left. I learned to stop looking at every car that passed by, wondering if she'd show up again. I stopped checking my phone out of habit. I even started sleeping through the night. Eventually, I took our wedding photo off the hallway wall. Not out of bitterness. Just because it didn't belong there anymore. It didn't represent the life I had now. It was a snapshot of a chapter that ended. One that hurt like hell. But one that made way for something else. Something I hadn't found yet, but maybe someday would. And when that day came, I knew I'd be ready. Not because I'd healed completely, but because I'd finally stopped waiting for answers that never mattered in the first place.